pictures. It's the really easiest way for them to deal with your plant issues, obviously. So that's the best way to get in touch with them about any specific issues you have. And then also, if you're having more issues or like one-on-one attention, they will actually come out to your yard and test plants and things. You have to pay, obviously, for those kinds of services, but it's like $2 per plant or some time. So that's another great resource that they have. So any level of gardening that you're at, they're able to help you with. They're great, they're nice, and I really recommend their services for gardening. I don't know if anyone has used them, has anything else they want to say about it, but tap into this resource. It's really great. You good now, David? Thanks,
Yep,
David.
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Information is free.
It's free, yeah, except for if like you're mailing sand soil to them, obviously you have to pay for that, or if you need them to come to you. Anything else is totally free and they're available for you. Perfect. Okay.
So, yes, like Nathan was saying, my name is David. I'm actually with Earth Community Garden and Food Pantry. The focus of that is actually poverty alleviation through food security. The presentation that I have tonight is actually a long one, so we're just going to quickly go through it. I also work with Community Action Services and Food Bank, which is just right around the way here. And Kimberly, it's good to see you as well. And Kimberly's great. She's with Habitat for Humanity. Oh, nice, nice.
New home here.
Oh, awesome. So you're a new resident to the Franklin neighborhood. Awesome. So we have two gardens that are going to be in the Franklin area. The one, well, actually, are you north of 100 South?
Yes.
Okay.
To Center Street.
Okay, to Center Street. Perfect. So there's the communal garden, which is just right off the freeway exit there, and then we also have the one that's right by. It's more or less 700 South and 300 West, and it's kind of like back there in that little corner there. We're having a cleanup party this Saturday at 10. If any of you want to just come out and take a look and sort of see what's going on. But the purpose of this is to get everybody really excited about gardening and get involved in whether it's in your own garden plot at your place, or if you want to get involved with us as far as gardening, or even start your own community garden. I've actually helped probably over a dozen people start community gardens in Salt Lake County, Utah County, and Sanpete County. And then there's one we tried to start in Iron County, but it ended up it's just sagebrush and the whole series. But really quickly to get to the kind of purpose is, oftentimes when we talk about the purpose of gardening is obviously there's exercise, it's being able to interact with each other, but there is a focus on food and food security. Several generations back, if you have a great grandpa that's still alive, if you didn't grow it, you didn't eat it. Now, I mean, it's a lot different now. I mean, we have supermarkets and we've kind of streamlined some of the commercial agriculture. But getting back to those really basic fundamentals of land cultivation and gardening is great. So we always talk about what is food justice and what does food justice look like. This is just a really quick thing. It kind of shows you where deaths from hunger happen every day and kind of where the concentration. There's 8,600 people a day die of hunger and hunger-related causes. And if you were, in the United, this is where it's kind of interesting. In the United States, we're doing a lot better. We only have 4,000 people a year that die, so we have less than half of the daily deaths in a year in the United States, but still, the reason why it's kind of crazy is because in the United States we have 163 million pounds of food waste a day. And so what that looks like is if you were to take all these 8,600 people a day that die, and you were to take them and their 30 hungriest friends, every single day they could eat a feast like that. That's each person. So there is a lot of food waste. And food waste is different than food loss. Food loss is actually food that is not edible or cannot be put into the food chain. Food waste is actually edible food that could go into the food chain that is either thrown away or left to rot or just not getting to the places where it needs to go. So those are kind of the two differences in definitions. So really food equality and food justice, both are important. Food equality focuses on distribution, so typically when we talk about equality, we're talking about distribution. Justice focuses on methods and knowledge. Both of them are important. So like getting distribution to places is great. So it's kind of hard to like talk about, oh, like, are you sure that's like good organic produce, you know, to someone who's just starving? They're like, I don't care if it's organic, I'm hungry, I can eat it. And likewise, food justice is good too, because if we just are equally distributing terrible processes of food and food consumption, then, you know, like we're just distributing injustice actually. So we're having equal injustice rather than equal justice. This is, we also teach bridges out of poverty classes that if anyone ever wants to come to, it goes through Arrive Utah, which is their community action services and food bank to it. So we go through more or less 6 classes as an organization, teaching people how to garden. They're really, really basic classes, you know, and they kind of go in a very gardening cycle, so you can pick it up at any time if you know nothing about gardening. I've been doing this for over 11 years, so I've kind of learned a little bit, but there's still a ton I can learn. And when I started, I killed everything that I could touch. Which is kind of what teaches you how to get there in gardening. But these are the classes that we focus through. And let's see, this is not there. Number 1 is just identifying, and I'll just really briefly go through these. It's taking the natural landscape of where you are and finding a way to make that more productive. And up there, you know, the top left, we have the rainforest in the Amazon. This is actually a Utah climate. That's your typical Utah climate before lots of cultivation happened. In the top middle, top right is the Sahara Desert. And then the top 2, we as an organization are kind of more the areas we're focused on, are very urban gardening, the middle being the Serengeti. But every single location, every single environment presents different challenges and actually has a lot of benefits. So you're trying to take the good things, like one thing that I love being in Utah is we have the seasons, and that winterization process is phenomenal. I mean, it composts, it gets that soil, it gets that garden plot nice and rich for you to get going in the springtime. And because of the way that because of the snow cover and the way winterization happens, it actually does really good where in places that don't have that winter, they don't have that kind of downtime to recoup. And then after we kind of figure out where we're going to garden, now we want to make sure, say, is the soil good to garden? And then our classes go through, this is just a quick little spiel of like what we go through, everything down to mineral content, to mineral size, and actually the soil size, to actually the ratios that you want in the garden, to pH, all that stuff. And then once we figure out, okay, this can house life, this soil can house life, and there's different ways that we can amend that if it can't house life, then we go into, now we need to get water there. So we can have the best soil in the world, we can't get water there, it doesn't matter what we're going to plant, it's going to die anyway. So now we go into irrigation and just get really almost down to a molecular level of like cohesion, adhesion, the behaviors of water, teaching people that, because oftentimes we're in a very hot desert environment, but we have really compact, silty, almost clayey soil, which holds water really well. So we think that all issues, I see people, overwatering is probably the biggest issue we have in the state, rather than underwatering. And that's just because, you know, the old adage, when all you have is a hammer, you think everything's a nail. So when all you're lacking is a hammer, you think all you need is a hammer, right? Or that all the problems are going to be solved by a nail. So oftentimes in a desert environment, overwatering is the #1 issue that we have. As we talk about water. Then once we can get water there, we get to seeds and planting. This is a really cool thing. It tells you how to transplant. It lets you know how the seeds are going to work below the soil as well as above the soil. It's going to let you know where to place the seeds, how deep to place the seeds, and just kind of the basic. Seeds are an awesome, awesome thing. Here's this little thing that you can put, and it takes water, the minerals from the soil, and sunlight, and makes organic stuff. And that's just phenomenal. I mean, I can't even do it. That's why I love weeds, even though some people hate weeds, because I can just compost this, and that's organic compost. But, you know, some people just get rid of weeds. We work on methods of organic, and when we say organic, it's a really loose term in the gardening industry, and even Miracle Grow has their organic line. So we try to move beyond organic into sustainability. And by that meaning, how could you garden, what are the methods you could use if the zombie apocalypse happened? Right, so the zombie apocalypse happens, I can't go to Lowe's or Home Depot or my nearest garden store. Can I still create food? And not only can I create quality food that I can maintain through like an apocalyptic type thing. So we're kind of looking at methods beyond industry. Because chemical fertilizer does do very good short-term results, but maybe in the long term is that, or if you don't have access to it, is that the best thing to do? And then, now that we have things growing, then we do our organics class, and this is a lot of fun. So, because now we have things growing, we talk about fertilizers, we're trying to make these things as healthy as we can, and then we're also wanting to make sure, because we're not the only thing that eats these plants and this produce, other things do, so that's pesticides. So we want the things that are gonna kind of come and even use our labors, try to at least keep them away, or keep them somewhere it's not impacting us at a level that's gonna be detrimental to us and our labors. And then herbicides, making sure that other plants are not competing for this fertilizer and these nutrients we're putting into the soil. So we talk about organic ways of doing all of that. Here, one of the best ways for pesticides is plants, using plants that pests don't like, using spices and other things, because especially where we have a really alkaline soil here, our pests are used to an alkaline weed soil diet. So if you can bring more acidic soils, so like a lot of Indian spices, places like that, still organic, it's not going to kill your soil, it's not going to kill the worms in it, it's not going to kill all the microbes in it, but the local pests will be like, I guess they just don't like Indian food or whatever, so they stay away from that. And then also using other insects to protect our plants. And you have praying mantis, you have all sorts of different mites that will eat some of the more pest mites, ladybugs. Fertilizers are your worms. Your worms are your best fertilizers. They will aerate the soil. And worms are just awesome. In ancient Egypt, they used to test the fertility of the soil by how many worms they could find in a shovelful. And so if it was like 1 worm soil or 2 worm soil. And there's a lot of, still kind of the same sort of way. If you dig into there, you have lots of worms in your soil, you're doing well. Because also worms won't be even toxic soil either, so it's also a way to test the toxicity of the soil. We can also do subsurface composting. This is called hugelkultur. This is an old kind of like Normannic, I want to say, because it is in like ancient Germany, where they would mound it up. So it actually meant hill garden, hugelkultur, if anyone speaks German. And one thing about hugelkultur that's really great in the state of Utah is in Germany there's lots of rainfall, but here it actually holds water in. And the wood and putting all this organic stuff underneath where we actually don't have a lot of rainfall, it holds water into this soil that would either lock it in through its clay, not allow it to release, or that would just evaporate and dehydrate. And then here's other forms of like pesticides and herbicides and stuff. The best herbicide, I tell people, what do I spray for herbicides? And you can spray like citric acids and stuff, different things that will kind of kill some of the weeds. But I say the best herbicide is just this, right? Pluck it up, throw it in the compost pile, and it takes a little more effort, but it's probably better in the long run. And then after we've done all that, our plants are happy, winter's coming, we talk about harvesting. And when we're harvesting, we're not only just harvesting the produce and the stuff that we want to eat and all the goodies, but we're also harvesting seeds for the next year. Because if you're getting things zombie apocalypse, we can't go out and buy seeds the next year. And these seeds already are carrying the genetic code to say, okay, this alkaline or this pH of soil, this composite of soil. So every generation, just like we pass on to our kids, and I tell him all the stuff that I messed up with, so that hopefully, he doesn't do the same thing. Plants kind of do the same thing, right? They're passing on a little bit of information to their seeds. So those seeds are actually, this is what heirlooming is. Heirlooming is actually taking seeds over generation to generation, getting it so that they're the most adapted for survival in the environment in which the seeds were taken. So that's why we always want to harvest seeds. You do have to watch out because there's a lot of intellectual rights and properties with like seeds and different like genomes right now, especially if it's like GMO crop. So just make sure, read on the back of the package that you can actually harvest those seeds and not going to get in trouble by Monsanto or whatever. And a lot of there's plenty of places that just do organic and heirloom seeds where you won't have any problem. And then the other thing that we're actually harvesting that we forget about is the soil. So here we've taken all these nutrients out of the soil this year. We want to return those back into the soil so we're not depleting our soil for the next year. So we're harvesting our produce and the goodies, we're harvesting the seeds, harvesting the soil, and then that's pretty much it. And that's kind of like what the harvesting looks like. You can see reclamation of the soil here, just a bunch of, and then there's all the goodies up there in the top left.
And if you have a garden in the summer and there's extra, community action will take.
Yes. I mean, being that really there's not a food shortage issue in the world, it's a food distribution issue. And so if everyone's doing their part rather than saying, oh, I'm not going to eat all this, and I do this all the time, and I'm like study the stuff all day long. So anyone gets a pass, but we all kind of do it. I look at food, I'll be like, oh, I'll get it eventually, and as it just gets more rotted and moldy, I'm like, okay, fine, throw it out. Or I could have just been like, oh, let's just take it down X, Y, Z places here. So if you have neighbors, take it to neighbors. If you take it to the food bank. If you're going on a trip, pack it up, take it with you. And I mean, especially like zucchini, I mean, that stuff goes crazy, and like your neighbors probably like hate you after a while because you're bringing so much zucchini over to them. But take it down. I don't know if Provo has any laws about giving it to people, but
Yeah.
I think as long as you don't prepare it, you're not going to get into any like food like get in trouble with any like laws or stuff like that. This just really quickly, and we've got 2 more minutes left. I'll let you guys go. So this is when we're talking about food justice and actually the world in general, you always hear beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And in a sense, so is food justice. So these are all pictures of Hawaii. And I use Hawaii because I think we all objectively think Hawaii is just a beautiful place. No one looks at Hawaii and be like, oh, that place is just nasty, disgusting, maybe you just bomb it, right? Even though it probably was bombed several times. But if you look at Hawaii, so these top are natural Hawaii, and these bottom are, now I'm a city boy, I like the city, I love the shops and the different, cafes and doing all that stuff. But there is something really beautiful about like the natural state of the land in which the land exists. And the reason why I say that is because it's really easy when you go into Hawaii in a place like this. I mean, this is actually an area of Hawaii where only the indigenous and natives go. So it's actually tourism and development's off limits. And a lot of the indigenous groups will actually tend to the garden. If you see that, they're trimming the palm trees, and then they will lay the trees like under the foliage here to like let it decompose, and they're kind of facilitating in these natural processes that happen, and it's just objectively beautiful. I mean, no one looks at that and says, okay, they need to come in with a bulldozer and just plow that and get rid of that all, because we're like, that's beautiful. But something happens like when we get away from the palm trees and the beach. So here's native Utah. You're like, oh, there's no palm trees, and even me with my very, very kind of hippie sort of organic look at everything, I'm like, oh yeah, just develop that, right? This is kind of in the Sugar House area, and this is over on Redwood. And they're like, oh, I'll buy that and put a house there. And we start thinking development. But if we can change our kind of mind to see, okay, because the way that we engage with each other reflects how we engage with nature, and vice versa. The way we engage with nature is also indicative of the way we engage with each other. So as we can learn to peacefully engage in both, like we are humans, and humans do need places to live. We're still a species on this planet that requires resources just like any other species. But are we taking more than our fair share, or are we kind of having a very mutual, symbiotic relationship with natural systems? So I'm from Holiday, and Holiday is like a place that everybody's trying to like buy land, right? I mean, it's just one of those places in Salt Lake that when land goes for sale, it goes for sale for a lot, and it's really hard to get in there and everything. But we found a little garden spot there in Holiday, and this is kind of in the downtown Holiday Village area, and it was literally a parking lot. I mean, you can see this is the way it was. Just through using those natural processes, there's a few years later, it's kind of hard to tell with the light and everything, but you know, you can see some of the plots, and then the plots started to become more defined. We had 8 rows of raspberries that were 100 feet long, you know, and then now the raspberries are all growing. All these plots, we had about 100 plots, so 100 different gardeners from about 40 different countries, all with their traditions of richness, and it has been passed down through generations of land cultivation. Here's the street view of it. So I mean, you can see it was a parking lot, and it was for sale, and just gravel. And this was after the first year. Just by agitating it, you know, growth happens through agitation. So as we can engage and interact, like growth happens. So I often tell people, and I think that's also with us psychologically too. I'm like, if you don't feel like you're not growing mentally or psychologically, just go get agitated, or let someone else agitate you, because that's when growth happens. If you're looking to do it and actually plant. Within just a few years, we took that and turned it into that, right? Just beautiful, lush garden. The diversity in plants. We have, I mean, people will kind of come there, have a place where you can kind of go, interact, engage. It's a very social environment. We did all kinds of classes, from like all the classes I said to, like, we have brewing classes teaching people how to like brew, like everything from dandelions to raspberries. So it was a really so we took that parking lot and turned it into paradise, you know, rather than that was the song, Paved Paradise.
Paved paradise, you put it
Yeah, there we go. So we kind of did the exact opposite with that, but like I wish I could say that's where the story ended. The story did not end there. This is actually currently that same garden. And so like development always gives way. You know, some developer, it was less than an acre and came and bought it for 1.6 million or whatever. So of course the person's gonna sell, right? You know, like at some point you hit a place where it's like, oh yeah, I'll sell. But, and again, we as humans are just another species. We need to live, but how are we engaging? Are we engaging peacefully? Are we taking more than our fair share? Was it worth kicking out 200 gardeners for 18 condominiums at like $1 million plus? You know, maybe, I don't know, I guess you would have to. I'm sure from an economic development standpoint where they're looking at bottom line, but like, oh yeah, it was definitely worth it. But you know, sometimes there is a benefit to the economy, if we think of economy outside money, that is actually greater than what can be quantified through money and through like economic terms. And so that's just my last little thing that I would give to you, and hope to see like as many of you out at the garden as we can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did any of you have any questions as far as any of the gardens here, or how to sign up, or do any of that?
So the one off the freeway, that's when you guys built the greenhouses last year, right?
That's where we built the greenhouse, yes. And that is
Center Street?
Center Street and about 10th West is where that one is. And that's a really fun one to get in, especially if like you're kind of new to gardening, because there's not private plots. So if you kind of slack off during the end of the year, you know, other people will pick up the slack a little bit, but it's a way to just kind of get in and get involved. The one that's over on 7th West or 7th South and 300 West, you do rent out plots. I think the plots are going to be $30 and you get 20 of it back. So I mean, it's like $10 for a year to garden. That includes the water, seeds, anything that we get. It's kind of a really cool thing. You can go to the Community Action Services website and click on Community Gardens and just fill out a form, and then we'll get you put on an email list and let you know as spots become available. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you, David. And then those classes, are they held at the community action?
So we're gonna have them at, what's the place right at, like, I think it's like called Centro Hispano.
Yeah.
It's like right next to it. And they have a community room there, and we'll do it probably a few times a month, you know, kind of during the gardening season. And that's open to anybody. So if you want to just come and learn how to blend up bugs and make the pesticide, I'll show you how to do that.
Delicious. Perfect. And you just get the information on the same website?
Yeah, and you can get the information on the same website, or even just fill out an email. I can get you on an email list or something.
Perfect. Okay, I'll post about that on the neighborhood page.
Okay, and feel free to give my
Yeah.
contact to everybody as well, too.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming out. That's everything I had. Terry was supposed to be here with some more announcements, but her meeting must have run late. So thanks for coming, guys. And unless we have anything else.
Let me check in really fast.
Yeah, perfect.
I have to say gardening's a
And
lot of
then-
work.
Forget this.
The next
Thank
month's
you.
thing
That was really
is,
It was
next
good.
month's thing
It
business.
sounds like it's
I think so, but I'm not
really
100%
easy.
sure.
Okay, well, tentatively, it will be
Tentatively.
business and it will be really great on April,
Don't get expectations too high.
it will be great.
Okay.
April, what, first day? Wednesday will be the 4th, so April 4th.
Okay, there is an email
Yeah.
we received from Arrive Utah,
Yeah,
and Sherry wanted to make sure everyone knew about it. I'll just go ahead and read it. It's just a paragraph. So it was the marketing specialist for it. She said, "I'm reaching out to you because we have spots available in the Circles initiative here in Utah County. If you've never heard of Circles, we equipped low-income families and individuals with the relationships, confidence, skills, and knowledge required to reach financial stability. They stay with our initiative until they've left poverty. We're hoping you can find us some families and individuals who could use our help. If you know someone personally who is struggling financially, please have them call us. If you have any community events, bulletin boards, or other means of communicating with your area about this opportunity, please use the PDF." So she goes, "We are working with BYU to evaluate our program in the next year, so they'll be handling the intake, so it'll be local. And with your help, we believe we can make a difference in our community, specifically in Franklin." So if you know of any families in particular that could help, we have information, PDF, and contact number. You can call, and it sounds like there's a financial service that will kind of walk them through getting out of poverty, which is fantastic.
Yeah, the circles started actually in Provo South in the Boulders. Was the first area that they worked in. And I haven't participated, I've sort of looked into it because I think I'd like to, but there's no way I can do that at this stage of life. And the reason for that is what they do is they pair a mentor with a family. And that could be, like I said, a couple or a family with another family. And you meet with them weekly and you talk about, and there's training involved, but, you know, I don't know exactly the particulars of everything you talk to them about, but you're sort of a role model in their life about somebody that does have a stable house or a career or a job, and you're there to talk through issues. They also have like a weekly dinner for all the participants and all the mentors, like Wednesday nights or something. It's another opportunity to just interact and socialize, engage. Because I think the issue is sometimes people in that situation don't have positive role model, and so they think they're stuck in that situation. And this whole program is designed to, you stick with this family until they've moved on to that next stage of life and they're actually out of poverty, whatever that means. So I think it's done a lot of good work down here, and the program's done so well that I know Salt Lake County, I don't know where at, but they're replicating the program up there, so for what it's worth.
So yeah, if you know anyone that just can't seem to get out of their situation, it might be a really great program for them to participate in. And I'll post the PDF on the Franklin Facebook page.
And were they also asking for mentors in that, or just for families?
She was just asking for families, but I'm sure that they're always looking for mentors.
They seem to always be looking for mentors.
Yeah, she was
That's
looking for
their
particular
model.
people.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Sarah. Okay,
That's it?
yeah, we're good. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks guys for coming.